Listeners, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. As you know, every conversation is special to me, especially when I get to be real with you and tell you how I just sort of blundered into a circumstance and came across someone who was of value to you. And so here I am telling you that I did not have the best social tact and filter on when I was watching another resilience speaker, ironically, and we were at an event and it was the networking time after. And all of a sudden, out of the corner of my eye, I saw this stone being peeled and I didn't understand what was happening, but my eyes lit up and I turned and found out it was a coping tool. And so it is my very excited privilege to have Miss Renee Benn here with you to tell you about the product she created in order to come up with a solution, because the reality is we all have our individual walks. We all have our way of doing things. And there's no cookie cutter way to navigate our mental health journey. So it is, again, my honor and privilege to introduce to you, Miss Renee Benn.
Thank you very much. I'm excited to be here. This is going to be fun.
I'm glad you're here. And I'm so excited because I hear so many unique ways and different approaches and things that are trending. And I have never seen a product like what you've showed me. So can you start there and tell me about this product, and then we'll get into you.
Yeah, sure. The product is at its basis, it is a sensory seeking fidget. And it is we call it a Fidget Stone. What it is in its essence is a lava rock that has been filled with my special filler, which is latex and rubber based. And what the filling does is it dries, but it doesn't harden, and it has that elasticity in it. So once it sinks into the holes, you can take your little pick or tweezers and you pull these little plugs out and they come out perfectly clean. And it is a very satisfying experience. What we say is it's a completable task. When you have 20 tabs open and you need to hyperfixate to get something done, this is the product for you.
That is so fascinating to me, because I know that's when I am stressed, when I am angry, when I am working through some emotions in my own mind, I go to sort of a completable task, yes, whether it's cleaning or clearing off a counter or organizing shoes.
Exactly.
But sometimes we don't have access to those things.
And sometimes I don't want to clean.
Yes.
sometimes I just want something frivolous. And I think for a lot of people that could be, I hear a lot of people using video games for that kind of escape. But for me, that wasn't going to give me that sensory feedback that I desperately needed. And this does give me the feedback, to tell me I've done a good job. It's done. Now I can move on to something else. So
I really like that.
Yeah.
The sensory part.
Yeah. For me, there has to be a feedback. Like this whole thing started because I had a very stressful job and I couldn't sleep at night. And so my daughter turned me on to these 10-minute satisfying videos on YouTube. And I would watch those, but it wasn't the same as having something at home in my hand. And so then I went down this road in the back of my head, I need to make something so I could have it at home. Never in a million years thinking I was going to sell them. I was just going to have something for me. And I was trying to find a product and there wasn't any. And so then I decided, what do I want it to have? And so I made this mental list of all the things I needed. And when I found the lava stones that were exactly what I wanted, and I started trying all the fillers, I mean, I tried everything. But having that in my hand and feeling that satisfaction of completing something was so necessary that I don't get that feedback from a video game where you have to hit the next level, or, there's different things other people can do. I just can't. I needed that feeling of there's something dirty, I cleaned it. There's something wrong, I fixed it. Kind of a feeling.
And I have so many questions and I'm going to dig into those, but tell the listeners a little bit about yourself. What is your profession? You mentioned you had a daughter. Tell them a little bit more about you.
Well, I have a wife. We've been married for 22 years. And I have a daughter who's 20. She's away at college. She is at Grove City, which is local, but still she's not at home. So it's kind of sad. But I have two rescue dogs. The big one is, we call them, we have one that's big and dumb and one that's small and angry. And so the big one is Remus Lupin and the little one is Thor Odinson. And they just keep life interesting. But I definitely, my background is in sales, and I did some HR work, and I have been mostly administrative assistant for most of my, or office manager for most of my professional life.
I think that's a great lead in, because so many times as mom, or when we have more of an administrative role, I know at least in clinical sessions that I have, is we find out that there are a lot of tasks that don't have an endpoint, that completion stage.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
The inbox is never empty.
Never.
The laundry is always there.
Yes. Always.
Somebody always needs fed, including the big, dumb, and little angry dogs.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. They do. And, when going from, having a child in high school, she was very participatory. She was in the musical, she was in everything. She was in her robotics team. So we were constantly moving to the beat of her life. And then she goes away to school.
Yes.
And it's just this very weird feeling of what am I going to do? I just don't know what to do with myself at night. And that's really, I think, when it really ramped up, that I need to have something to focus on at night and to get my hands busy, or I just sit there and have nothing to do. And I don't want to clean all the time.
Yes, that's so true.
I don't.
Sometimes our brain is just aching to be done.
Yes.
And not someone's life or the overall well-being of our responsibilities. We want to just step away from those things, but we don't want to step away from those things to get lost, because we may be productive minded. We may be someone who likes to see things complete.
Yes.
And tangible. And
Yes.
This touched both of those.
It does. I am definitely one of those people who has to have a job, have a finish point. I feel very satisfied and very accomplished when I get a project done, whether it's painting a room or whether, any abstract idea that we have to do around the house. When it's done, that's when you go, okay, that feels good. And when you're lacking that, just to have this little tool that gives you a project to do and have a completion, I just think it's brilliant. I mean, I use them all. I still use the stones all the time. I get high on my own supply. I love it.
The never ending, completely accessible supply.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
One of the things you mentioned that got you started was first your recognition that there was a need.
Yes.
And then you began to list out the things you needed in order to get to the development stage. Like, someone may not want to have a product, but I think those are two very applicable places for people to start with. Is, I have a need.
Yes.
What are my needs?
Yes. What are my needs? Is there a product that can facilitate these things? And my findings were there wasn't anything for people like me who enjoy picking. And through this process, I have met just so many fantastic people and their stories with needing this urge to pick, from people in the autism community to, I've talked to quite a few, believe it or not, PTSD people from the wars. They have this, they'll pick it themselves, and just everyone has a different reason. My picking was never that bad, but I am so appreciative of the stories people have told me and how the scarring is, and how, they got staph infections and all these things because they have this need to pick. And my feeling of it is, it's because we have control over it. And if you have something that you can have control over, then you can focus back and do what you need to do. And so giving people the stone to pick rather than themselves has been a replacement for self-harm. That is something I had no idea I would go down that road when I came about this, but I could not be more empathetic with the people that I speak to that have this, and the stories they tell you, they can really humble you. And to see that my product helps these people is amazing, truly.
It's really eye-opening to realize the illusion of control that we function in on a day-to-day basis. We
Right.
get up, we have our habits, we have our job, and then all of a sudden something breaks our expectations or a new stage of life is entered. And that illusion of control, the veil has been removed.
Right.
And now it's like, I need that outlet.
Mm-hmm,
And so one of those outlets is picking or self-harm or fixating on things. And that can go both ways, harmful and just not so harmful.
Right. The fixating on things. I know that I would do this to my husband and daughter. If I would be rubbing their back and I'd feel a bump, I'm at it. I'm like, no, this is a problem and I need to fix it. And so they're both done with me doing that. I'm no longer allowed to do that. I've run that course out, but I feel that way when I'm working on a stone. Like, this needs removed. I'm going to do it. I have a project. I have to get this completed. Even though it is latex and rubber and a stone, there is something that it connects with in that sensory part of your brain that really it's so calming. And I don't know all the specifics behind it. I've been told things, but I'm not a therapist. But just in this process of developing this product, just hearing from different therapists how this can replace self-harm. Not probably with everybody, and you would need therapy with it, obviously, but to have another arrow in your quiver, just another tool to help you with.
And were you intentional about the color as well?
I love teal. That is my favorite color. That is where it started. We are working on different colors. We've had some issues with supply chains, of course, but yes. I'm pretty hopeful that we have new colors that are going to be coming out this year. I'm very close to knowing that we're going to make it, but it's a chemical process and we have to make sure that everything lines up and that we can get the colors without negating any of the values of the filler. So there's a lot to it.
Oh yes.
Chemically, yeah. There's a lot to it.
And you really lucked out with the teal because that is such a soothing color to emotionally respond to.
I agree. I don't think we would have had the success had it been red or, a vibrant yellow. As much as those colors appeal to people, I agree. I think that the teal is so calming. I totally agree with that.
And it goes with the theme. You're using lava rocks. So there's like a watery, there's that calm. You're bringing all of these elements. Yes, it's one additional tool, but you're really bringing multiple therapeutic elements into the concept of saying, look, everything feels out of control. Here is something you can feel. Here is something you can touch. Here is something you can complete.
Yes.
And you really can get lost in it when you're picking. Like that repetitive type of motion keeps you somewhere for a minute.
It does. And for me, I constantly have like 20 tabs open in my brain at all times. And they're half thoughts here and a half thought there. And I can't pull it together. But when I am doing a stone, I need my hands, I need my mind, I need my eyes, I need every part of it to pick at the stone. And that, for whatever reason, how our brains are designed, calms all the tabs, closes them all off, and I can just focus on one thing. And then when you kind of are done with it, you feel like, okay, what can I work on? And there's something about it that then allows you to move forward in a calm manner and not so chaotic and get things done that you need to get done. I don't understand it, but I enjoy it. I very much enjoy picking the stones and having that feeling when it's done.
And I always giggle when I'm in a therapy session with someone and I say, you know what, I'm going to be a cliche therapist and I'm going to ask you to breathe. And I'm going to add and do grounding things with your 5 senses. That doesn't always work for people who that's so far outside of their comfort zone.
Yeah.
where you're taking those elements of grounding from a therapeutic standpoint and you're bringing them to a tangible object.
Right. I was talking to, and this journey has taken me in a lot of different directions. Probably about November of last year, I had two psychiatrists in Israel reach out to me, and they run the Tamir Institute in Tel Aviv, and they have a lot of therapists and a lot of different things that they work with people, and they wanted to talk to me about the product. So I'm in my little Pittsburgh house with everything set up in my dining room, and I'm talking to two psychiatrists in Israel, and they're telling me, like, we've used these stones in a replacement therapy for people with dermatillomania, which is this sort of form of OCD, but it's this skin picking where you pick it yourself to excess. And he said, I was very curious because we thought this particular patient picked himself to inflict harm on himself. But it turns out he just had an incessant need to pick, and he transferred most of it to the stone with therapy. I want to be very clear. I'm in therapy. I'm medicated. My daughter's in therapy. We all love therapy, and you need it on top of, your arrows in your quiver.
That's important.
It is. You can't take a pill and expect it to be fine. You can't take this product and expect everything. I truly believe in the therapy that I've had, that my daughter's had, but they were just so excited that they had found something that this market is completely untapped. There are people out there. From my own experience, I've been in business 2 years and I've sold over 25,000 units to people. It's great. It's an untapped market. And I'm constantly trying to think of things to help these people and to come up with new ideas to facilitate the different needs people have. And that's what brought about our latest product, the sensory stones, because there are people who can't use the picks or they don't like the sound.
Oh,
and
yes.
My daughter.
I didn't think about that.
My daughter's a perfect example. My daughter has a disability. Her left arm is partially paralyzed. We had a traumatic birth. And so this happened. She's had it her whole life, but she doesn't have the control to hold the stone and use the pick at the same time. So I created a stone for her and for people like her that it feels like you're picking scabs. There's no other way to say it. It feels like you're picking scabs, but it's a stone and it's covered in my filler, and we have these pretty sequins in it, and you can just slide your fingernail under the ridge of a sequence and you can just pick, and she can do it one-handed. You can just set it down when she's on, a video or she has an online class, she can just sit and pick and put that fidget energy over here and focus here. I mean, that's, you come up, you meet people, you hear what their needs are, and then you can sort of, well, how can I help? How can I change my product to meet their needs? And so that, that's how things come about.
And we don't always, until we have that personal experience where you dug into your own needs or your daughter's needs, or someone really walks you through, as these doctors did in Israel. Right. We don't actually realize, I mean, I had the opportunity a few months ago to speak at a limb loss support group for women. And we don't actually get to understand fully the types of measurements that come. And because my illness relates closely to that, I was able to speak to it. But until we get to sit and listen to the stories and walk through where the hiccups are, what type of extra measures someone goes through to make it through their day.
Absolutely.
And sometimes we don't know that until we ask ourselves. I mean, you didn't know what the struggle was until you started identifying needs.
Yeah. When I talk about my daughter's injury, and you brought up a really good point. There are people in this world who have chronic pain and you just don't know. You see them, you have no idea, but the things that she has to think about, she has the chronic pain. She has to think about her day, what she can do. Is she going to be able to get in here? Is her arm going to be a problem here or there? That takes a lot of mental energy, and it increases anxiety, so that you're not in a weird situation. She's not ashamed of her disability, but she doesn't need it to be front and center at all times either. So it's just like this constant pain management and surrounding management. And I think for her, that brings out her anxieties. And then she has, like, she can't stop. Her knees are going and her fingers are going. And so then she can't sit still. And so every time she's in a classroom or some kind of setting, she has to have her fingers doing something. And that it's just her anxiety coming out in movement. Yes. I think like you said, if you don't know somebody, you don't understand that having a fidget for some people can help them concentrate and really zoom in.
And don't assume that all professionals understand this. When, like, if you're someone who's saying, yes, this is my struggle, or yes, they don't get this. If your heart's jumping, I know my medical trauma is significant. All you have to do is walk in a lab coat and my brain goes from functioning crystal to like closed posture, like tears will fall involuntarily, like I'll begin to flutter inside.
Yes.
And like for the dentist, even for cleaning, my feet will go up and down. And I will tell the medical folks that are checking and coming in and out, hey, I have trauma. It's not going to interfere with what you're doing, but you're going to see my feet going up and down. That is where I take that energy and I put it outside of my body.
Exactly. That's your calming.
But how many people don't know that about themselves and have the ability to articulate, this is how I cope. Maybe there's an option such as the stones that allow me to channel that energy more effectively.
Yes, I totally agree with that. I'm a similar medical trauma with my daughter, the birth going so wrong, almost losing her, and all the things that went completely haywire. And then after that, I mean, I don't know your story so well, but you have to focus on the healing and you can't focus on what happened. Yeah. And then it builds and you don't know it. Like mine manifested in hypervigilance. So so then I was a hovering mother and I had to make sure that everything was right. And I was never going to be the person that something bad was going to happen to again. And that's eventually what got me into therapy, recognizing that what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and then eventually finding things that help that trigger. So it's like you said, you have to recognize it. And then, okay, I know that I need to fix something. So what can I do that won't hurt anybody else and drive people crazy, but I can have something that I can work on myself. And it started with coloring. And I mean, I've been down every fidget road you can imagine. It just wasn't enough for that sensory seeker in me, but recognizing where you're at is so important.
I think that's really important too. What you just mentioned about coloring, it brings to mind the idea that we all are attracted to something different. And some of it is that tactile, that touch that says, yes, this is the thing that brings me solace to my soul.
Right.
But sometimes it is color. Sometimes it is sound. And the more we tap into, I don't know how many years ago it was, but I wrote on an index card, what has brought me joy lately? And for a while, I just felt like I was caring for everyone else other than myself. So I was like frantically searching what on earth not only like gave me reprieve, not just gave me a nap, but what filled my soul, what brought that joy.
Right.
And I realized that it was interacting with colors and sounds. It was this getting lost type of role. And I found for me, I could just put color on a canvas. It doesn't have to turn into anything, but just that movement of like watching the lines and seeing it come across with the brush and then making a squiggle and then going back over, sort of how the Asians have the sand therapy, those little boxes.
The Zen gardens.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Those can be good, but this takes that to a level where it's portable. It takes it to a level where you now have these two approaches with the picker and then with the actual smoother rock where they can pull up. It just makes it more accessible, especially in a therapy setting, because what therapist wants to bring a bunch of canvases clunking around and clean up the mess between. Like,
Absolutely. This is something we're going to start pretty soon here. We're going to start putting out to schools that have these calming rooms. Hey, here's a sensory stone, no tools needed, but it's a calming tool that you might be interested in. These are things that, you're a working mom and you have to take a conference call. You can hand to your child, say, just, go over there and pick these off. And it doesn't take batteries, and you're not worried about the content they're seeing if they're online or if they're watching something on television. And, it's reusable. There's just so many different aspects of it that I find really fascinating.
I'd like to go down that avenue for a minute. I see so many different professions using this as a tool in their workspace. And so you mentioned schools that have the calming rooms, maybe those special ed teachers, that's easy to carry with them.
Right.
And say, hey, let's do this while we're talking. Clearly counseling settings, but also those really high stress situations where you may be in the midst of a legal procession and you just need that anxiety to go down, whether it's custody or however that looks. Whether you're going into a big purchase like realty, those things in the waiting room could be really helpful. And so it sounds like
I really agree.
Industries can be creative in being wellness minded, people focused, and still do their normal day-to-day business.
Yeah, it's no different than having a cup of coffee waiting for somebody, or danishes. It's just something to help you calm down, to feel we're going to be okay. Like you said, if it's in a big legal proceeding or you're buying your first house, these are things that you now are in control of, and it changes the way your brain processes what comes next. So if I'm having a chaotic day and I sit and I pick a stone, then the next thing I deal with, what's for dinner? No big deal. I'm not freaking out over it. And then, it has repercussions through your day. And I'm not just with the stones, but with anything that you can find that can help you with that. For me, it's the stones, but it does take that chaotic mess of your brain at the moment, calm it down, and then allow you to move forward in your day.
The power of targeted coping mechanisms can be, it brings that freedom. I know my poor writer friends, I run a group and they're all writers and speakers from across the nation, and they're amazing, but they all have the same thing in common. It's as soon as they lay down to rest, as soon as they let their body take a break, all the ideas come flooding, and it's like, hurry up, write, get all the ideas, grab them while they're here.
So true. I totally agree with that. When I lay down and if it's too quiet, then my brain starts going, what do I need to do tomorrow? What did I do right today? What did I do wrong today? So when there's that quiet, that's when the brain can really go into high energy. And it's probably no surprise why I pick at night. I will pick a stone before I go to bed, and it just gives me a feeling of satisfaction. If I hadn't gotten everything done in the day, at least I got the stone done. And then it's just as soothing to refill it, and then you have to wait. So there's this delayed gratification. You kind of know what's coming tomorrow. I can do this again. My sister-in-law she has a very stressful job. She works at a prison. She works in rehabilitating prisoners, and she comes home and she picks every day. And then she refills it, sets it aside. She knows, I'm going to come home from a stressful day tomorrow. I'm going to sit down, take however long, pick the stone, and then move on with my day.
In the refilling process, is it the same material, just reused, or is there additional stuff that needs to fill it?
Yep, we sell the additional filler bottles in its liquid form, and then you spread it on. We have a spreader that helps you make it just like it was when it came from us, or you can fill individual holes. It's completely up to you, and different people like it different ways. It usually takes, I'd say, overnight to dry, depending on if it's too warm out, if it's too cold out. There are temperature differences that make it a little bit different, but typically overnight, and then it's good to go the next day. Okay. And so to me, that is a stop point. I've picked it, I'm done, I'll refill it, and I can't do anything about it. So you're not addicted.
Like I was going to say, so you're not so fixated,
right,
that you're not leaving the stone.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Like I know people who do like Candy Crush. Well, it's always the next level, and it becomes this instead of helping, it becomes a different addiction.
Yes.
This is not the case with my stones. They're definitely a finished product you can set aside and go on with your day.
As you continue learning, you mentioned not even realizing how far this would translate just from your own personal need to 25,000 units sold. I mean, that's a big jump.
Oh, it's crazy. I had started this process in February of 2020. I had been laid off, and I came to my husband and I said, I've had this idea in the back of my head. I'd really like to kind of flesh it out. He's all for it. And I finally came up with what I thought was the finish, like, this is the stone, this is how it's going to be. And I took it to my good friend. She's a picker. And I took it to her in her lunch break at school. She's a teacher at my daughter's school. And she starts picking it. She's like, Renee, this is really good. This is really good. And I was like, okay, well, if there's two of us that like it in our small little community, maybe there's more people. And that has taken us to, February of 2020, I put it on Facebook. In June of 2020, I put it on Etsy, and I was selling a little bit. In the meantime, I had gotten another job, a full-time job, which I loved and I was good at. And so I was working at this job, and this sweet, sweet girl from Vermont, her name is Emily, and she has autism, and she bought one of my stones, never told me, like, didn't ask for it for free. And she reviewed it on her website, where she's called Stimmy Girl. And she talks about stimming products for like fidgeting for autism. That was in October of 2020. She sent me a message on Instagram and said, hey, I reviewed your product on TikTok. Here's a link. And I was like, I don't know what TikTok is. I'm texting my daughter away at college. I was like, is this porn? Am I allowed to click on this? I don't know what it is. And my daughter's like, yeah, you can, it's fine. So that night she posted it. By the time we went to bed that night, it had gotten 1 million views.
Wow.
My Etsy account was sold out. And from that point on, it's just exploded. That tells me there are a lot of people who need something like this, and who need to pick, and who need that. It is just associated with so many people. I never could have imagined it would have been like this. Never in a million years could I have imagined this.
And how powerful for you, because like when we go through our own stuff, we feel like we're all alone. We feel like there's us and maybe 5 people in the world
absolutely
that get us and our stuff.
Absolutely. And then I'm looking at my friend Rachel, and her and I, for months, she was my cheerleader. We were this was the beginning of the pandemic, when you didn't even leave the house to go grocery shopping. So my husband was an essential worker. So he was leaving, he was doing all the grocery shopping, and my daughter and I were at home, and I was just making and selling these products. And my friend and I would go for walks, and she's like, Renee, don't give up. This is really something that could be great. And I was like, I hope so.
Like, I'm making rocks at my house. What do you mean?
Right. And you're like, that, okay, that'd be so great. Well, then fast forward, I've left my full-time job. I'm full-time with the Stones. We've made all of these sales. I've connected with so many people, and you go, clearly this is not of me. This is not my doing. This is clearly God's, and he has given me this, and I'm just trying not to screw it up. So he's laid it out.
His solution, like, I know more than you. I see the struggles.
Yes.
These stones matter. And isn't it like him to turn water into wine, make lame people walk? And now we have stones that soothe in such a way that it's cross industries and cross populations, cross oceans.
Yes. We have a distributor in Australia. I mean, I'm a girl who was working in an office. I was, just office managing, doing all the background work, never wanted to invent something, never thought I would. So this very, very clearly to me is of God for, for sure. The things I have seen and the people that I've talked to, you can't sit down and plot this.
Oh, goodness, no. And he wants the glory. He wants to say, even in your wildest dreams, beyond what you can think, ask, or imagine, you would have not said out of your mouth, I'm going to create a stone that creates mental health solutions, an autism tool, like
Mm-hmm.
medical, psychiatry, like all of these places, legal,
Yeah,
anywhere you look. And it's him showing off that says, just listen, I've I've got you, and I love these people that you're going to serve. And
absolutely.
I want you to trust me beyond what you can see.
Right. It's going to be weird,
Yep.
but
It's going
hang
to feel
on.
weird every second.
Yep. But hang on. I know when this all first started, my husband was very supportive, but he didn't understand the picking. Like he didn't get it. And we were going to a baby shower and I was like, oh, I'm going to take these stones and I'm going to show everybody what I'm working on. And he's like, well, maybe leave them at home. And I was like, no, I think it'll be great. I did eventually leave them at home, or they were left at home. There's still a question about how they didn't make it to the baby shower. But at the beginning, you're afraid to show people and to be that vulnerable and be like, no, this is going to be cool. You just got to trust me. And then to get to where I'm at now, it boggles the mind. It clearly, he's now telling everybody, oh, this is my wife's business. He drives my work truck. He's constantly telling people, you got to try this. Now he sees like what it can do, I guess, beyond what he originally thought. He now sees the bigger picture. So to speak.
That's a really good testimony too, is we don't have to have this struggle, and we don't have to understand the compulsion to do such an act in order to be a blessing to someone who does.
Absolutely.
Like, it doesn't have to make sense to us, but what he saw it was him and you in the house and your daughter and this experience of a couple of your friends. And it was like, I'm not going to discourage it, because why not? I mean, it's go for it, just as any other spouse that would say, sure, try that network marketing. Fine, we'll buy this. Like, as any good spouse does, they're not going to discourage. However, when you're watching exponential growth in that year turn from self-satisfaction and self-soothing and this experience to being sold out on Etsy and over 1 million views on TikTok, it's like, I'm sorry, what are you doing again?
Yeah. Break this down for me again. And he has been, you look back and you see how God puts people in the places they need to be. My husband came in immediately and saw how I was doing things and was like, we need to make this easier. We can do this. We can do that. He came up with a whole new way to fill the stones. He gladly sacrificed his man cave, and we've turned that into the headquarters. He helps me in every aspect that he can. That's what his gift is at work. And it was able to be used for my company and help. He's very good at seeing the big picture and saying, okay, this is how to make it easier, more efficient. And it's worked out perfectly. Just to see the things that I've done in my past lives, in my past careers, come to fruition with pick and peel stones. I ran my dad's company for 20 years. I did all the back work. I knew how to run a small business, never thinking I would do it myself.
God.
But God said, maybe you will. Maybe all the things you've been through were for a reason like this, for a time such as this.
And the way I see it is God allows us to be placed with a spouse who complements our skill set.
Absolutely.
And after 22 years, the initial years are, why don't you get me? And you do it so different. And what is the problem here? I don't understand. But when you see something like this, where he allows a calling to be obeyed and followed and chased and grown in such a way, you're like, I wouldn't have been able to do this without both of our brains coming together. Absolutely. And having this team mindset.
Yes. My husband and I are so well paired, but we're not good at the same things.
Yep.
But we're very complementary on things. And he more than I, he picked up on that pretty early on and was like, here's our strengths, and look how we're working through things. And he's always very he's always analyzing, I guess, look, I want you to see that, this is how we deal with things. And that's why this happens. And this, he can see steps that I can't. Like he can see this bigger picture and I'm like right here.
Mhm.
So, our ability to see things in a different light, that's God-given. And that, we got, we got married after knowing each other for like 16 months and everyone, this is too soon and everything happened so fast. And, you look back and go, no, this is exactly why it was the way it was. This is exactly why we are the way we are.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
you know that God is, in charge of it. When you're willing to let go and be like, this is the path that he's put me on and I'm fully committed to it. I guess what I'm not trying to say you just don't do anything. He's given you the ability and he's given you the resources, and then you have to put the work in, and it's work.
Yes.
I mean, the marriage, not so much. We're pretty good, but the business, it is, you can't just sit back and say, okay, well, this will happen. This will happen. It doesn't. You have to do the work.
And I think that's what you saw was the gift that you bring, is being in that moment, knowing that these are the things that need done. This is the list that needs tackled. That gifting, because I'm the vision, I'm the big picture person, and my husband's the very task oriented, keep all the details knocked out. And I admire, because I wouldn't be able to have anything come to fruition if it weren't for that grind. And because you're the gift with that production aspect, it's like, all right, let's get this done. It's going to happen, because that's how I function.
Yes, that's exact. I get sometimes too slogged down into the details, and he'll have to pull me back and say, no, let's look at the big picture. And if your sales aren't so great this week, but look at the year, look where you've come from last year. And, that's where, that's what God had planned for us. Absolutely knew that, this kid, Tom from White Oak and Renee from South Park, we're going to find each other somehow and, have this fantastic marriage. He had it planned, but we worked at it too. So he gave us each the personality that we have, and, able to communicate. And I think that was also pretty important.
Agreed, both in personal and business. When we figure out, we talked a lot in the early part of this episode about getting to know yourself more and getting to understand those needs, those triggers, what works, what doesn't work, what's going to be more effective, what's not effective at all.
Yeah. And you need somebody there. I took a big risk with a product. We came out with these chocolate candies that you could pick. And I thought, oh, these are gonna be so great. But I went and got the best chocolate I could find. And I got like vegetarian gummy bears and vegetarian marshmallows, so everybody could enjoy it and it would be a great product. But then the cost was too high. And so they didn't sell. But I made a leap and I tried something. And I was like, oh, I told my husband, I'm like, they're not selling. And he said, you know what, there's a reason for them. We just have to find it. And eventually I ended up donating half of the leftovers to my daughter's Christian school. And they sold them to help raise funds for the school. Aww. And the other half I was able to give to my friend's hockey team, her son's hockey team. And so they sold them to raise money for the hockey team. I was like, okay, there was a need for them. That just wasn't, what I had planned. And so that, when things work out like that, and it's a lot easier to swallow those pills. And my husband is instrumental in saying, no, there's a reason. We just need to find it. But it matters. We just need to find why.
Because sometimes, if you look at one thing, there's 360 different angles to look at it just on the same plane. And so most of the time we can come up with 3, maybe 5 ways to approach what we're looking at. But the reality is there are so many creative approaches that we could be doing. And when we lock arms with a partner, or we ask new questions, right, or we speak to someone with different beliefs than our own. Absolutely. All of those things can, change your worldview, change your perception. I think most of us have, I know I have my core beliefs and my core values, but I don't discount. How do you see the world? How do you think of it? How do you see things? And these are things that you can take in. It doesn't change who you are, but it changes to see how other people see things. And that's, holding on to what you believe in and still being able to see how other people see things, that's going to change the world. That's going to be it. Mm-hmm. keeping your childlike curiosity.
Yes. Oh,
Like,
that's
let me
perfect.
understand.
Yes. I mean, I'm a lifelong learner. Every day is a school day. You're going to find out something new every single day. And so these are things that they're important. Learning is important.
Do you have some places you've been learning recently, things that have really inspired you or helped you along the way?
I will say from the beginning, the feedback from my customers has been number one. To hear them, what their struggles are, and they have been vulnerable with me, and that is hard. And I appreciate the people who make their TikToks or make their Instagram pages about their skin picking. And these are the people who are standing up and saying, "You're not alone. I am right there with you." And they talk to each other. What helped you? You know, a lot of people have brought my stones into these conversations, just in these vulnerable people who are letting their literal scars be shown in public. They're just heroes. To be able to stand up and talk like that, that is next level.
It keeps
and I
you
give
going.
them, oh, it does. I have 3 or 4 things that I've printed out and I keep by my computer at home. One is from a female veteran who served in Operation Enduring Freedom, and another, other operation, it's not in my head right now, but how the stress of her PTSD would just make her pick until she got a staph infection, and how the stones changed her life. And whoever would have imagined that? But she can sit down and pick a stone and have that calm come over her brain that she was unable to get otherwise. So it's things like that that go, okay, you're here for a reason. There's a purpose for these stones, and you get to be a part of it. And that's how I feel like I get to be a part of this feeling in this project that God has put me on, this path. And I just try not to screw it up.
Well, I have so many brain juices flowing on different people and groups that I think are going to be very excited to know that this is something. And as I joked with the listeners, I'm like, I was literally standing in a semi-crowded room. Everyone was going to get their lunch. And I look
Right.
over the corner and I'm like, what is that?
Yeah. I'm constantly trying to get the word out, because this isn't, it's a new product. It's a new invention. So it's not, like, how do I say this? I'm not trying to tell people to come to a store, a boutique that I have that has neat stuff. I'm trying to show people this brand new invention that can help. And so I am very big on I have a big mouth. I have no problem at all talking about, you know, the idea behind it, and showing. I carry it in my purse at all times to show people.
Now
like,
that's
this
a
is something
business
out there.
owner.
That's a hustle. I do. I constantly am talking to people and striking up conversations all the time. Just we all have some form of anxiety. It's silly to think we don't.
Oh, yeah.
And so if people can know about this coping skill, I'll be glad to tell them.
So I think you really covered this idea of, in order to serve your customers well, listening to them can be the most powerful tool, not only to keep you going, but
Right.
to make sure your business is tending to the need rather than your own sort of ideas in our head, because
Yes.
our ideas don't mean the market will hold.
No, as evidenced by the chocolate that I came out with. The chocolate stones weren't a hit, but the sensory stones are. And this was direct feedback from my daughter and from people who have, this is something I didn't previously know. There are a lot of elderly people, when they enter any stage of dementia, they pick. I have a sister-in-law who works in a nursing home and said, we can't stop them from just digging at things. So, and then there's elementary school kids who need something to fidget, and you don't want to give them the hook. They're pretty sharp. Yeah. So, you know, it was, you know, sitting down and I made like, oh boy, probably like 15 prototypes. And I go to my friend Rachel's house. She's my sounding board. She will be honest with me.
Here,
so
test
honest,
this.
so honest with me. But I took like 15 prototypes over, and one of them was what is now the sensory stone. And she's like, I just keep coming back to this. I can't let it go. This is so satisfying. And then all the other ones, I'm like, okay, these aren't, maybe for another day, maybe for another project, but this one we're going to focus on. And my daughter came home from school, and she knew that I was trying to come up with something that she could use one-handed. And so this then became, how can we make sure that it's stable on the table and that she can work at it? And it just worked out so well. But that was direct feedback from not only her, but from the other sources who would contact me about other people that need to pick that I had no idea existed until they told me. So yeah, you have to, if you're going to be, if you're going to be making things and you're going to be trying to meet people where they're at, you have to listen.
Yeah.
And you got to hear what they're saying.
Listen to yourself and be able to articulate that, listen to your customers, and know that the decisions aren't always easy. Like there's that moment where you feel like you're going to throw up, and then you put that order in.
So true. It is definitely, look, being a business owner is not for the weak. There are some, there are definitely some anxieties that go with it. But that moment when I first started with the sensory stones, I thought, I don't like these as much as the other stones. Maybe they're not going to be as well. And now they're my favorite. I can just sit and pick at one. It's become my favorite thing. And at first I thought it might not be as nice, and I like it more. So just so funny how things work out.
And as you lead this charge in this industry, I mean, we knew fidgets were growing in popularity, but nothing in such a targeted way.
Yes.
Where
right.
You're addressing this particular need, because you're not picking these plastic little spinny things. You're not picking these buttons and these twists. Like this is so relevant to the people who, whether it's their nail cuticles, whether it's parts of their body, whether it's whatever, we have so many options to go into, and we'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. It is what we're trying to do at this point is to get into the academic realm. The doctors in Israel really are trying to getting me to pursue doing a study and trying to connect with people who could help me, fund a study or find out how to do a study. But it's one of those things I don't know anything about, but I'm sure somebody somewhere when the time's right will pop in and say, oh, I know how to do that. And I'll say, okay, Lord, now's the time. I guess we have to do that. And, these are just the things we try to control and can't. And then God brings somebody in and says, okay, yeah, here you go.
Well, the idea maker, the work creator in me is bubbling in all the directions. I feel like I have 10 phone calls to do after this recording. So I'm
that's
so
awesome.
excited.
That's awesome. Yeah, we work with Wesley Family Services, and we work with Beaver County Rehabilitation Center. And these are adults who love to work and have something to do, and to have this, they get therapy, they get help, and they help me make the stones, and they love filling the stones. And that's another thing I never would have thought they use that as like a bit of therapy, that these people then are so excited to come in and work on the stones. So anytime the stones
cool.
It's so great. They call me the stone lady. They get so excited when I show up to pick up stones, and they all want to show me which ones they worked on. And I love every second of it. The one guy, without fail, every time I go to pick up stones, asks me if I know Stone Cold Steve Austin. I don't, but he thinks I should, and I agree. I think I should too. But they just get so much joy. And anytime I get I'm published or there's something on Instagram about the stones, BuzzFeed loves us. They post us all the time. They show the workers and the clients at Beaver County Rehabilitation, and they are so over the moon about it. So another job creating and helping adults with disabilities. Just God has taken this in the ways that you couldn't have mapped out. Yep.
It's just the opportunities go 360, not just horizontally, but vertically.
Yeah.
There's not a stopping point, but how can we continue to allow this to expand?
Absolutely. And he has it and is just showing me daily about what he can do.
I'm so grateful for that. I'm so grateful for your obedience in how he's allowed you, how he's led you into this uncharted territory.
It is, yeah, it's been an amazing journey. And, I go to a Bible study every weekend, and that is my time. That's me. Like I go through all the crazy of the week, and then I have this set time where I go to Bible study. I'm the dumbest one in the room, and I just listen to these really smart people, and they talk about all these different things. And it's just my refueling and, being able to refocus on who he is and what he wants from us. And without that, I don't know that I would have seen all the things that I've seen. It's that taking time to reconnect with God every week and read his word, see what he has done and what he can do. And, there's days I walk out of there and I'm like, clearly this is of God. And then I say, Lord, I love you, but I don't want to be pregnant like Sarah. Don't give me that blessing, but keep me where we're at. And that, he just shows off, and
Yep.
it's amazing.
And you're like, thank you so much.
It's been an amazing ride.
I think that's the most peaceful thing that we can do, is realize that we don't have to be the one that carries all the burdens and makes all the plans. And yes, we're wise with the gifts that we've been given and the resources we've been entrusted, but the reality is we're never the smartest one in the room. He is all knowing, all powerful,
Absolutely.
just so thoughtful and attentive in the details that we didn't even know were there.
Exactly. There was roads I didn't even know existed. And he takes me down them. And I just, grateful isn't the word, thankful. There's no word to describe that overwhelming love and that overwhelming care and protection. It is just amazing. Even when things go sideways, okay, this is for a reason. Let's figure out why.
Yeah, like, all right, Lord, let's go.
Yeah, let's figure out what these chocolates were meant for then. And okay, they're going to raise funds here. They're going to raise funds there. That's what they were for. Okay.
Yep. I have so many things and not enough time. I am just abundantly blessed by the way the Spirit had my eye catch that stone and
Absolutely
get to know you and get to celebrate the impact he is making through something that,
thank you so much,
it's purely his style.
Oh, totally. Yeah. And it's like you said prior, like before we started, is that you can see the glow on people and you kind of, we're drawn to each other.
Yes.
You say, hey, let's talk.
He's doing something crazy in your life. Me too. I feel nuts also.
Yeah. And this is not the trajectory my life was on at all. That's exactly what it is. It's great. It's fantastic.
Well, it has been an honor and a privilege. Do you have any final words you would like to share with our listeners, to include how they can find these stones?
Absolutely. Right now we have a Etsy shop and I have a website. It's www.pickandpeelstones.com. And we're looking at the Amazon angle. We're not there yet, but we're trying to be as available as we can be. And I would tell anybody who would think maybe this isn't for them, you have no idea. There are so many people who have come to me and said, this is the weirdest, greatest thing I've ever bought. And they absolutely can't put it down. And I would encourage anyone who has somebody in their life that picks to send them my way. And let's have a conversation. Let's see if this would help you or not.
And if you have someone in your life who picks, or this may be that grounding completion task that they need, they're not going to have this gift yet. So you're not going to double gift when you're thinking of something extra special for their special day.
And I tell people, college kids going away from home for the first time, anybody who is going to be entering in a stressful situation, this is such a good, easy thing to have and to help calm your brain. It's great.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited for the world to know the stones. Pick and peel stones.
Thank you so much. I so appreciate you having time to talk to me today. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Listeners, if this has resonated you, either from someone who is just trying to find an answer, trying to find an outlet, trying to allow all of that anxiety or energy or emotions come out in a healthy way, this may be your answer. Or it may be that highlight that says, you know what? It start to tap into what do you know about yourself and what do you know about the experience you're having with the way that you're choosing to cope. Because there are things that are working for you. There are little aspects that may be helpful, but there also may be aspects that might need a better option. And so getting to know yourself might be your first step in order to move towards this freedom and this relief that we're talking about today. And if you're a business owner, as you can hear, you are not alone in the insanity. Please hear our hearts in knowing that you need your people. You need the people who are going to be real with you, who are going to be honest, but who are also going to cheer you on, even if they don't understand and it sounds nuts. Because sometimes God births an idea that is so far out of your comfort zone, it could only be Him. And as you know from all of the crystal conversations, we know it's Him. It's just getting to know Him better so that we could figure out why on earth He's calling us in that direction. So thank you for joining this conversation. It has been an honor to have Renee Benn with us and let you learn a little bit about her journey and get your order in for your pick and peel stone. Thanks, everybody.